Okay, good morning, Andrew. Thank you for joining me. So let's start with you. Living in Mount, as you just said. So what schools did you go to when you were in Mount, and did they influence you to get into local politics?
Started off, my first school was Dan Lass, primary school. I was there for a number of years. Then, as it was called, was Bringolog. I went to Bringolog for 2 years. I actually went there the last year they closed, before it was then amalgamated with Mucknash Comprehensive School. And then for the latter part of my school time, I was in Mucknash Comp. And I was there during the refurb when they were building the new part. As I say, They closed Bringolog and moved everybody up there. So I've always gone to the 3 local schools in Mountain Ash.
Yeah. What was your experience like in the schools?
It was alright, I quite enjoyed it. I went back to do my A-levels, but I did apply for a job with the local authority. It was kind of Borough Council at the time. I applied for an apprenticeship post. I went back, and I always remember I had a message when I was in a maths class telling me that I'd had the post, and so I had great pleasure in leaving school and saying that I wouldn't be coming back for any more my A-levels, and I was off to do an apprenticeship.
Yeah, so it was always sort of the council that you wanted to go into, was it?
Well, it was construction, it was. So bricklayer, I started off as an apprenticeship with Cannavale Borough Council. So it was more construction side I went into.
Yeah.
Worked with the local authority, it was Cannavale Borough Council, then became Rhondda and Taff. Worked in the housing and schools department doing maintenance. Done some an inspector's role in terms of visiting properties, looking at what work need to be done, and then issuing that work out then to operatives to be done. And then I finished in 2004 to stand in as a councillor.
Right, okay. So as leader now of one of the biggest councils in Wales, how do you manage to keep up with the work, and what does the typical day of work look like as a councillor?
It can be quite varied, first of all. If you're dealing with local issues, so for example this afternoon I'm meeting somebody who is applying for a grant, so it might be going to meet them, giving them some advice, putting them in touch with the right people, and on some cases you actually help them to fill in some of the forms. So I could be dealing with this morning, I met with somebody from the Future Generations Commissioner's office to discuss some of the city deal projects and some of the bigger infrastructure things that's going on in Wales. No 2 days I'd say the same. There's a whole raft of things. If you think of all the services we provide, almost 12,000 staff, there's a vast variety of things that the council does. Many things that probably people don't, unless you ever deal with those services, you probably don't realise the council actually does them.
Yeah.
But they, a number of complaints, a number of issues, a number of areas you want to invest and change things come across my desk. So no 2 days are the same. Okay.
You mentioned the city deal there. When is that actually going to come into place, and how will it benefit Rhondda and Taff?
Well, it's formally in place now. We signed the formal document on the 1st of March last year, which means that we can start drawing down government funding. The business plan needs to be signed off by the 10 local authorities, and the intention is to do that in the next month or so, and then that means it releases funding to start investing in projects. Specifically for, if you think about RCT, what will benefit from it, at present the total fund of £1.229 billion isn't fully allocated. So as projects are developed, as things come forward, we will then look at each opportunity to invest. But if I just cover some of the areas, so £734 million is going to the Metro. So one of the areas is about the core valley line, so for example the Aberdare line, the Turbot line. They will be electrified, they'll have new trains, stations will be upgraded. We're already talking, and actually this year we'll be looking to invest in some infrastructure in terms of new park and rides at Abercynon, Porth in the Rhondda and Pontyclun. So some of the Metro funding will certainly benefit us, because the trains will be every 15 minutes rather than every half hour like they are now. There's the potential to extend the line up to Hirwaun, which obviously will help reduce car usage in the Cannavale, which is a real problem at peak time. So hopefully we'll see the transport infrastructure improving. But part of the city deal funding then is around skills and housing. So we'll be looking at areas, for example, how do we get more young people into apprenticeships and graduates? We do really well as apprenticeship programs in Wales, but we don't do very well as retaining graduates, getting them into private employment. Yeah. So that is an area that will be focused on with City Deal. And as I say, housing regeneration sites, there's a lot of areas. If you think in Cannavale, we've got the Furnacite site. Yeah. If you think down in the south, there's a number of areas in the Taff area, which are former brownfield sites. which have sat idle for 15, 20 years. It's those sort of sites we need to invest in and make things happen.
Yeah, so are you thinking about businesses on those sites, or is it housing?
It'll probably be a mix. No two sites are the same. It's very much dependent on the need. But for example, one of the areas we're looking to invest very shortly is in building industrial sites, industrial units. So we are looking at taking a report through Cabinet shortly, because we've secured some funding in terms of Aberdeen and the Coedil area, so building 2 multi-million pound industrial areas. There's a huge demand since the WDA was wound up back probably 15, 20 years ago. We don't see industrial sites being built, and there is actually there's evidence which has been put through the various bodies such as City Deals, such as the Valleys Task Force, that if you build some medium and small starter units, there's opportunity to bring jobs into the valleys, and that is something we can be driving. So there will be a mixture of housing and industrial development.
When is the South Wales Metro going ahead, and when will it actually be completed?
The actual appointment we know from Welsh Government probably in the next 2 to 3 months who the winning bidder is. Probably then within about 3 or 4 months after that, we'll start getting more information in terms of what extra enhancements they'll be looking to develop. So as all the bidders, there was 4 bidders, it's down to 3 now, they'll start giving information around what extra enhancements they will look at bringing to the table basically. Are they looking to improve the capacity, which is one of the fundamental points. If you try and catch a train in the morning or in the evening, valley lines are massively over-congested, so we need more rolling stock, more frequency of trains. We'll start getting the detail probably in the next 2 to 3 months about how they're looking to develop that.
Okay. So while we're on the matter of projects and investment then, do you think that people in the valleys get a fair deal?
Depends on what areas, but I would say probably in the last, I was thinking about this morning, probably the last 10 years, so over the last about 8 years, we've seen some record levels of investment. But still think we've got a long way to catch up. So if you think in the valley I'm from, in Cynnar Valley, we've had a new hospital which replaced the 2 older hospitals. We've seen the new college just built in Aberdeen at £22 million. We've spent over £50 million on a new school in Aberdeen and a new sports centre. We're doing things like the Crossfire Link, which is just outside my ward in Mountain Ash. I can remember going to school and seeing an exhibition when I was 15 for the Crossfire Link. I'm 41 now. And only in the last 2 years, I think we've made real progress. And when we're on site with diggers constructing it, and it'll be open in about 18 months' time. So there's lots of projects that we are bringing forward. We've recently taken a report through our cabinet about investing £300 million over and above our normal capital programme over the next few years. So that's investing in things like extra care facilities for the elderly. More people are living older. There's more people with dementia and other elements, so we need to make sure we've got the support network there. So we are investing, I think, huge amounts of capital funding at a time, obviously, while there's still cuts going on. Our budget year on year just about is going down in terms of our revenue, so our day-to-day money is getting tighter and tighter. But what we have said is we need to invest more in capital in terms of trying to regenerate and generate other business, because if we do put public sector funding in, that quite often will draw in private sector funding as well, and that will help boost the economy and create jobs, etc.
In local news this week, it was just the other day actually, Mountain Ash Town Library is due to be moved. Could you please elaborate on this?
Yeah, the plan is we took something through Cabinet back a little while ago saying about we want to develop community hubs, and the idea being is looking at how we can make sure that in the future, if our budgets are going to continue to be under pressure, because even if they're not cut and the budgets are just frozen, because we have increasing pressures in schools and social care, what it means is that 2/3 of our budget is spent on those areas, and it means the other 1/3 of our budget, things like libraries, day centres, youth service, all those kind of areas, they get squeezed more and more, and we take money from those areas to prop up social care and education. So one of the ways we want to try and reduce our costs but stop doing things like in the past of closing libraries, closing day centres, is by bringing these buildings together, making better use of them. So for example, we've been really successful now in getting funding going forward on the legacy scheme for Communities First. We'll be looking as well, we've had probably over £1 million, I think £1.1 million a year agreed for employability schemes. Well, we've lost in, for example, in Mountain Ash, the job centre. So one of the things we put together, which will be going into consultation very shortly, so the residents can have their say, but if we can totally revamp that building, so it will look nothing like it is now inside, it will be, the layout will be totally changed, and the building will actually be extended to make it a little bit bigger. What we'll be looking at is possibly having a library there. The DWP, which was at the job centre, they would be a number of days a week. We'd have employability staff there, we can have the one for all staff, and we will still have some sort of meals service, like a community cafe in there. So it means that you're bringing everything together to make it more sustainable.
So what's going to happen with the old library then?
We haven't found out the plans on that yet, but we have no intention of selling it or doing anything different. Citizens of Ice Borough, we allow them to have the upstairs of that building. They've been based there for a number of years. We allow them to have it for peppercorn rent because we support and fund cab quite a lot. One of the discussions I've had with them is that they would welcome taking over the whole of the building. It would allow them then to expand some of what they do there, and it would make it easier for people to access the service on the ground floor, while some of the back office staff could be upstairs and some of the other support. So the intention is that building stays a council building, cab stays there. We have no intention of moving them from there, but actually if everything works out well and the consultation is supportive, cab will actually probably take on the whole of the building, and that is something we are discussing with them.
Okay, so what's happening with the town hall in Mountain Ash? That's empty.
Yeah, that's been empty for a little while. That's been looked at now. We don't want to sell the building because it does have some value in terms of it was the former Mountain Ash Urban District Council offices many years ago before it became Cannavale Borough Council. So we are talking about options around the third sector. There's been some training providers who are interested in accommodation. If we could bring them there, and it is early days talking to them, but there could be about 30 or 40 people based at the town hall using the offices, which also then helps footfall in the town centre.
Yeah.
Because if they pop into town to buy their lunch, they might do some other shopping while they're there. So we're certainly not looking to sell the building as things stand. We're seeing if we can get either private sector or third sector in there.
Okay. I was looking at the council website and see that you are introducing PSPO officers. What are they and what will they be used for?
We're not introducing PSPO officers. The PSPO is the Public Spaces Order, so it's changed, in effect, it's like a bylaw. So where we've recently done a few PSPOs, for example, one example around the dog fouling area, we've gone on covering littering, etc. This is particularly, the one that's out now is particularly focused around Aberdeen and Pontypridd, and I think that might be the one you're referring to. That's linked more to antisocial behaviour and alcohol. So in those designated areas, and there will be a red line on a map if you have a look at the map, it indicates the areas. That basically bans drinking in the streets. We largely wouldn't be enforcing that. It is something with the police.
Yeah.
So it's something that's gone through the Community Safety Partnership. So for example, the reason in particular this has been done is that there's been a huge spike in alcohol-related incidents in Pontypridd, around the Lower Graig, around the train station, that area where there's a number of pubs. So with the police evidence, they've supported us in putting together this plan to ban alcohol in the streets, so you can't take pints, bottles, etc. outside. That would largely be enforced actually by the police, although the council will have the powers to do it as well if they wish.
Yeah.
Other PSPOs we've used around dog fouling. We've done a massive consultation almost a year ago now, and it was probably one of the biggest consultations the council has done in terms of the level of support. Generally, we had 96 to 97% support. I wish all our consultations were so positive, but very much looking to ban dogs off football fields, because a gentleman came here to my office when we were looking at doing this. He lost his leg many years ago. He was a rugby player, played, I think, I'm right in saying he was in Mardy on the field. He had a open fracture, cut his leg open, bone came through the leg. He picked up the disease off the field, which was from faeces, and actually lost his leg. So he's been fronting some of the campaign with us. And it was on the basis that the council gets a massive number of complaints about dog fouling. So we brought the new rules in. We have fined so far probably close now to about 150 people. But we are also trying to avoid fining wherever possible. So we got a lot of education campaigns going on. There's a lot of stuff on social media. But they are basically, these PSPOs are in almost every time, they're in direct result from feedback from the public. And then before we introduce them we have to do a full consultation on it. So we have, for example, on the parking side, we got say 12 parking officers who carry enforcement. On the PSPO side, we've got 11, possibly 12 enforcement officers there who cover, because they are very much different legislation in terms of the enforcing powers. So we've got a couple of teams of enforcement officers who cover the different areas.
I'll pick you up on the parking in just a moment, but following Conwy Council's decision to collect rubbish once a month, will RCT Council be next?
Definitely not. We've given a firm commitment. We don't want to go to 3 or 4 weekly bin collections. What we've introduced, and there's been some media attention about it recently, is that we are looking to limit the number of black bags every 2 weeks. So, for example, in the Cynon Valley, you can only put your bin out, no side waste.
Yeah.
If you live in the Rhondda, where following the consultation many years ago, they didn't want bins, so it was agreed that they could use black bags. They'd only have to put 2 bags out. But the issue being is that an average family of 4, you shouldn't really be putting more than 2 black bags a week out if you do recycle everything. And our waste awareness officers, they go out knocking doors, they speak to people. But the issue becomes is that a small number of people just simply don't recycle, and that's why we're trying to clamp down on that. Because ultimately, if we don't increase our recycling target to over 70%, we will end up getting fined about £1 million a year by the Welsh Government. So that's £1 million which should be spent on schools, on roads, other services.
Yeah. There's a strong belief among many people that the cost of council tax doesn't reflect services they receive. How would you respond to that?
If only that was true. The level of services we provide are only paid for by council tax by 19% in RCT. So 81% of all our costs in our budget come from either Welsh Government grant or they come from other sources of income. And while people do say, no, obviously, we pay council tax, so everybody has to pay council tax, unfortunately. But with the block grant going down each year from the government, and okay, this year it's more or less stayed the same. But if I just was to explain over the last few years, the sort of things we've had where we may get our budget cut by as much as £10 million, but social service pressures are maybe 4 or 5 million. We have to protect schools. We had things like the national insurance change came in, which cost this council £4.5 million a year every year with the way they changed it. So we are under massive pressure. So unfortunately, when people see the council tax going up and they don't get they don't see the services improving or going up at the same level, it's because unfortunately the block grant, which makes up the mass majority of our budget, that keeps going down, and the only way we can balance it is either cut in services or put a council tax up. It's a difficult one that every council has to wrestle with.
In preparation for the interview, I asked locals for their questions to put forward to you. I'd like to raise one of them, actually. It's about the parental parking in Cynon Street, Darren Last Primary School. One resident said that they've never seen the street so bad before, whilst the school are saying that they are doing everything they can. What is going to be done about the problem of parental parking in Cynon Street, and why has nothing been done about it?
I'd have to say, first of all, it's not that nothing's been done. I'm the chair governors of that school, and actually we've done quite a bit in terms of both the school and the council. I asked for figures last week, actually, how many people have been booked around Darnlast School in the last 12 months, and the figure is 21. So 21 vehicles have been booked for parking, either block and drop curbs, on the zigzags or on yellow lines. It's not unique to Darnlast. I got to say that unfortunately more and more people got cars. Everybody wants to bring their child to literally almost at the school gate, and I know that in some cases people are literally putting their child in a car and only going 2 or 3 streets, and with all the other health elements that we're supposed to be trying to tackle, walking to school wouldn't be a bad start. We're looking at some options over the last year. We obviously set our budget, capital budget now gets set basically this month now in February for the year ahead. So one of the things we are looking at is the access road to the side gates to the school, whether or not that could have a traffic order put on it, because at present the council can't enforce. We only have the powers to enforce where there's yellow lines and where there's traffic orders. Doesn't mean that offences which are committed, such as blocking access, parking, just obstruction basically. We've done letters on to the parents several times.
The message is not seeming to get through.
No, it does. For a very short amount of time. But unfortunately, we send letters home. We've introduced with the council now the junior road safety officers. So we have the kids outside doing stuff. We're looking at the green cone, ski we were, etc. but all it seems to do is move the problem around the corner, because people literally...
Yeah, well that's what I was going to say actually, because Kingcraft is quite maintained and policed. However, the vehicles are now moving over to Corridron Street, and that lane in the back entrance is constantly blocked. And that is emergency access to the school, and there's been a number of cases recently where a child has nearly been run over in that street. So residents are actually asking for yellow zigzag lines to be put in that lane to try and police that area as well.
Yeah, we can't put zigzags in that lane. We won't be able to, because it's not a clear way outside the school. The definition where you can put zigzags and keep clear zones are quite strict. So we have to follow the parking regulation guidance for that. So what we're looking at is to see if we could put a clear way marking down there, which basically means that no vehicle should stop in that lane.
Yeah.
That's something we are looking at, but the problem being is that to do something like that, you need a road traffic order. Road traffic orders cost about £5,000. You have to consult a statutory consultation with emergency services and with the public, and they take 6 to 9 months. So as I say, the problem being is that if we set the current year's budget, which is coming to an end now, would have been set over a year ago. So we now have to set the year ahead's budget now in February, when we set our capital programme. It'll be coming to cabinet in a few weeks' time. So one of the areas we are looking at to see whether we put funding aside as part of our traffic programme to deal with that issue. But as I say, what the officers have suggested is a clear way there, which means people can't. That allows then the council staff to also enforce it, where at present we have no powers of enforcement on that lane.
Okay. Moving on to childhood obesity, because that's one of the biggest problems in the county. What are the child obesity rates in RCT?
I haven't got the exact rates. Public Health Wales has done quite a lot of work on this. They've brought some cabinet documents, presentations to cabinet over the last probably 2 years, I can think of. But through the PSB, which is the Public Service Board, which is where partners such as the police, health, Merthyr Council, ourselves, all of us are on the Cwmtâr footprint. We have a joint board that looks at addressing particular issues. So, for example, it's not good as Public Health Wales trying to address obesity. It needs to be from the council's perspective. What can the council do in terms of support through schools or leisure services? Health boards, they have a particular role obviously in the various support mechanisms they provide. So we are trying to address that through the Public Service Board, but it is a big issue. And although I think the figures recently came out to say that across Wales the figure kind of stabilised, because there's been a dramatic increase. It's stabilised, but it's stabilised at quite an alarming rate. And if you are to turn the corner in terms of heart disease and other ailments, tackling obesity is going to be one of them. We see more and more people now presenting with diabetes, for example.
Yeah.
That is a massive drain on the health service. So just throwing money at the health service to support people and help people with obesity, or help people who move on to diabetics, etc., isn't just the answer. We've got to try and get there before it gets that bad.
Yeah. On the matter of obesity, why is the brand new 3G pitch in Parental Park being closed to the public?
I'm not aware that it is closed to the public. It's closed to the public when they haven't booked it, so the general public can't go and use it.
Right.
And the reason being is, for example, it's a £500,000 facility. Upgrading it didn't cost that, but actually to build a new facility like that, where we are building a number of new ones, they cost about £500,000. And unfortunately, in particular, what it happened to Cynon, the gate wasn't locked in between 2 sessions back probably about 3-4 weeks ago, actually around Christmas time. And somebody decided, it was only about 6 o'clock in the evening, somebody decided to set fire to some things there and cost about £2,000 worth of damage to the carpet. So we got a strict policy that wherever the 3G pitches, when they're not being used, when they're not booked, then the attendant, for example, the attendant who is at Cynon, his job is to make sure that gate is kept locked. So we are trying to make sure we do that, because we've had a considerable amount of damage at some of the sites.
Okay. With the closure of so many library and public facilities, how do you expect to continue with the Welsh Government agenda of putting low socio-economic communities first and providing them with the facilities expected in a 21st century society?
That comes back to my point earlier about these community hubs we're looking at. In particular, it's not just about the town centres, but we are looking focusing on those areas which have the biggest footfall, the biggest impact. but it's about the support programmes. So while on the one hand I would say yes, a number of libraries have closed, but we had more libraries, and I think we've probably still got more libraries than any other local authority in Wales. We currently got 13 council-run libraries. In addition to that, we've supported 3 community libraries, one at Bather, one at Taftswell and one at Mardy. So across the county at present we've got 16 libraries. We also, as I say, got the day centres, and we're trying to make, how can we make more of these facilities, making them not just for either for elderly people or things with youth service, etc. How can we bring the services together to make them, well, basically places that all ages can use. We are rolling out, we're doing a lot more around internet access. So we are putting free Wi-Fi into a lot of council establishments, whether day centres, libraries, etc. We've done sports centres. We're looking to see about how we can install more PCs, because I think access to online is a big issue. We're now looking, in the next few weeks, we're looking to review some of our mobile library provision in terms of how can we maybe make Wi-Fi available on the mobile libraries, how can we make it more, so you don't just turn up for 15-20 minutes with a bus and people have to literally, get on and back off. How can we make those stops, because we have 2 mobile buses that travel around the county day in, day out. How can we make those more relevant to people, and actually when they come there, rather than just go there for a book, can they actually report things, can they engage with stuff, can they access our jobs website, etc. So we are looking to review that, but of course in the time, we're coming back to my point earlier, at the time when budgets are being restricted and being cut back, it is becoming more difficult.
Okay. Finally then, really, well done to the council for delivering a successful and safe evening at the North Scalan 2017. What's the plans for this year's 60th special anniversary?
Right, I won't give you all the details because it's a lot of it is kept secret until there's only there's an organising committee which we set up in 2004 when I got elected, because there was no organising committee and it was just run by the council. So we got a couple of people from the town, we got people involved with sport, so we got a committee together. We've already had some debrief meetings from last year, but the sort of things I can tell you we are looking at. We've got some really good sponsors who have joined us. We've got about 4 now, I think it is, main sponsors. One of the things we've been speaking to them about is enhancing the fireworks for the 60th event, so that is something we're looking at doing. We're hoping to get a big name for the mystery runner, but obviously we don't reveal that until the day. We are limited at present on the number of people who can enter, and last year, if I give you a comparison, the event sold out in 4 days. It was a maximum capacity within 4 days, and that was the first week of September when we opened registration. If you go back to 2004, when I first heavily got involved, only 246 people registered to run that event. So it's massively increased, but we're limited now on the actual layout of the town. So the town itself is okay, but on the section of the lower end of Miskin Road, because it's such a narrow bottleneck, we work with Welsh Athletics who license the event, etc., the race. We are limited how many people we can put through that area, but of course with the crossfire link being built and that section of road being opened up, we are speaking to the contractors about how far developed that will be by this new year, and if it does mean we can use that section of road, which will be widened hopefully by then, we can raise the cap. So it would be nice to see that in the 60th year we get something like 2,000 people running. It's a massive event. We work all day on it. It is exhausting. I used to run it. I ran it for 9 years, but when you're setting up during the day, run it in the night, and then stay around till 10, 11 o'clock packing up, it's pretty exhausting, I have to say. But it is a really good event, because we raise thousands and thousands of pounds for charity. If you think of all the people who sponsored runs, the fancy dress, we were trying to work out over the last few years, and we're talking tens of thousands of pounds raised every year for good causes. So
fantastic race as well, and it brings everyone together, and not just from Mountain Ash, it's far and wide.
Yeah, we have international runners quite often. When we pick up where they're from, we make something of it. We've had them from Europe, we've had them from South Africa. There was a guy over here from Texas, I think it was about 2-3 years ago.
Well off topic now, who's going to win the Six Nations?
Well, I was surprised that Wales done so well last week. I have to say, I wasn't fancying Wales's chances, so I was a bit surprised at the final outcome. I can't say well, I don't want to win. I hope Wales would win, but I fear we won't.
Okay, Andrew Morgan, thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks very much.